Nights on the move early today and soaking up the last of this autumn heat, for the weekend at least. The reception for Andrew Price should be warmer than most, returning home to play some of his best mates from junior football.
I'll probably give it to me a few of the boys, a fair bit, but it'd be good to have plenty of friends and family there supporting me too, so can't wait.
He expects to start from the bench, but after that, it'll almost be like foreign territory.
Never really played against any of my good mates, so it'd be something different.
He'll be set to play plenty of minutes in a team that at best will have 3 Kangaroos backing up from tonight's test.
It'd be a big bonus if the 3 boys get through there and can back up for us, but it'll take a lot from the other boys to help them out and get through a second match too.
The Raiders are without the suspended Ruben Wiki and Jason Croker, who's injured. But after that humbling defeat by the Sharks last weekend, they're not short on motivation.
I got some people in the front 6 that, are given all the signs of being fairly focused in what they need to do.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
"78-year-old Rita moved into the new Woodland estate just over a year ago, but was only informed of the development in the last 3 weeks.
They want to start life again and that, and we're just very upset and disappointed.
The $12 million railway facility is to be built just 80 metres behind these homes, including the construction of 2 kilometres of rail lines stretching between Metford and Thornton. If the proposal is given the go-ahead by Maitland City Council, more than 30 acres of this eucalyptus forest will be uprooted and destroyed.
It was one area that we managed to secure for environmental protection, and it just flies in the face of the greening plan.
Heidi Gitzel, who's lived in the estate the longest, moving in 4 years ago, says the developer Queensland Rail should build the facility elsewhere.
In the coal loading areas and the coal fields, which would be Singleton and Muswellbrook, even west of Rutherford, or at the coal loader at Waratah.
Residents will be able to access the development application from next Tuesday and will then have 40 days to put forth their objections to Maitland City Council. Linda Kincaid, NBN News.
The results of the survey show that most of those surveyed would use reusable or calico bags rather than pay for plastic bags.
As if on some secret mission, thousands of patriots made their way through the dark and cold to remember that chilling moment on another beach far away from here 89 years ago.
My father was an Anzac in Gallipoli, but he returned, but he was injured so bad that he died afterwards. He used to attend every service when he was able to, and I'd still like to be able to come for him.
As did many others, what was bloodshed in wartime was now a tear, as the horrors of battle still plagued the mind for some, as those scars never seemed to heal. When dawn finally broke, that all too familiar sound sent many back in time. Then 4 shots were fired from Fort Scratchley, acknowledging both the dead and those still serving. Another mark of respect was the larger number of young people taking time to recognise just how lucky we all are.
It's a special day to remember, and think of all the people who died.
It means all those people who sacrificed their lives for us, for our freedom and peace.
So, with the going down of the sun and in the morning, we remember them. But as the sun rose today, it shed light on the many thousands more paying tribute to our countless heroes. The city woke to sounds of beating drums and the footsteps of those en route to Civic Park. There it was standing room only, a sign the Anzac spirit well and truly lives on. Adam McIlrick, NBN News. For 17-year-old Sam Gear, the grandson of former World War II soldier Frank McTaggart, today's march through Singleton was a time to join the country's reflection.
It's extremely important, to remember the things that their grandfathers or that they have done themselves, and just to represent how important that is for them.
This was Val Scott's first march, dedicated to a father, an airman based in Darwin who never really spoke about the war.
My father's medals have never been worn, and I feel quite proud to be wearing them for Dad.
There was no mistaking where this young lady hailed from, part of the Singleton Anzac faithful to line George Street. In the coalfields, the dead was staring right back, a painful sight for some, but providing an eternal thank you, even if it couldn't be said face to face. A vocal Port Stephens crowd was at its encouraging best. While at Stockton, even the very young played their part. They walked united to the suburb's monument, armed with floral tributes, farewelling yet again friends and family who never returned. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
Norths were missing their fair share of players to representative duty, but Jared Reeves proved they'd pass this test of depth. After scoring the first, the 17-year-old was left with an easy tap-in finish for goal 2 of 4 for the game. West halving the lead thanks to Kyle Bosworth's cracking strike from a short corner. Before Reeves joined in again, this time setting up Andrew Willett as they ran away with the win and joint share of the competition lead. Charlestown and Maitland City have both qualified for the Premier League Lawn Bowls final series, but final positions are still to be decided. The Tigers were leapfrogged by the Heels at the weekend, while a draw secured Maitland a spot in the top 6. Sitting in third, Charlestown risks dropping to fourth should Harbord score a big win in its final match, while Maitland City could also drop a spot should Mount Lewis finish big as well. At worst, Curry's Chad Reed needs to finish 5th in the final round of the US Supercross Series at the weekend to win the most prized title in the sport. He leads by 12 points with a round to go, but a solid finish should see him win overall. He's never finished outside the top 3 in the 15 rounds raced so far this year.
Today's ceremonial flag raising was the last for a while at Fort Scratchley. After 122 years, the fortification and its buildings are in urgent need of a facelift, and the site's owner, the federal government, will spend $5.5 million on repairs before handing ownership to the city.
The refurbishment will be completed in November 2005. We will then move back into the fort under a different arrangement. The fort will then be wholly and solely owned by the Newcastle City Council.
The Maritime Museum collection housed at the site will be moved to a permanent new home at Honeysuckle. In its place will be a cafe and function rooms. But for the fort's characters who volunteer their time to run the attraction and show visitors around, the closure will leave a hole.
I'll find something to do. At the moment I'm a bit lost, but in fact when we say goodbye tonight, that chap up there, There might be a few tears, you know.
This is the death of a museum. The museum virtually is Fort Scratchley Hill.
Paul Lobb, NBN News. Throsby Creek is fast gaining a reputation throughout Australia as a popular venue for rowing and dragon boat regattas, but neither group has had a permanent base for its members and their boats. All that is expected to change later this year thanks to a $200,000 state government grant that will help fund the building of this $500,000 aquatic centre.
The main purpose of the building is the storage of the boats and providing amenities for the members of the club and the people who use the club. It'll also supply storage for the dragon boats, the Dragon Boat Club, and offer them also amenities to use.
With a development application already approved, final money is being raised and the rowers and paddlers can't wait to have a home of their own next to the water from which to run regattas and weekly operations.
And we've got excellent access to the water here, sort of unlimited beachfront here to launch the boats, so we can get the boats in quickly and get a lot of them on the water, which will make it a lot easier for our Learn to Row programs and our school programs.
We feel that the dragon boats, the rowing shed, will be a very big part of attracting tourists to Newcastle, which they have been up till now.
There are few things left on Ron Smith's property at Hexham that haven't been vandalised or stolen. The 76-year-old former pilot has owned the land for the past 35 years and allows helicopter and ultralight pilots to use his airstrip for training. But two pieces of heavy machinery used to maintain the site were stolen at the weekend while Ron was in Newcastle at Anzac commemorations.
They've taken this thing, the grader, out, plus a 2.5 tonne tabletop truck with a 1,500 gallon water tanker on it.
This group of trail bike riders strayed onto Ron's land this afternoon and was given an earful for their trouble. He says the strip and his collection of old vehicles and caravans have been targeted because of the site's isolation.
Out of sight, out of mind, I can't do much else about it. It might be a bit drastic, I don't want to threaten anyone, but I'll kill the bastards if I get hold of them.
But new life will be breathed into the old strip soon with the Hunter Gyrocopter Club poised to move in with their current facility at Whittingham set to close. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Salvinia molesta is an extraordinarily aggressive weed introduced from South America. It grows at an alarming rate. In ideal conditions, which is warm temperatures and stagnant water, it can double in size in 5 days. It now carpets parts of Wallumbye Brook, including this section at Paynes Crossing, where it's had devastating effects.
It cuts sunlight to the water. Your submerged plants will die off because they need sunlight to survive. You'll get stagnation of the water as plants decompose, so you lose fish and other invertebrates in the water.
It's believed the weed was introduced to the waterways of the Hunter Valley by people dumping the contents of their fish tanks containing the aggressive ornamental weed. Today, a group of volunteers tackled the scourge of Salvinia using a new pump suction system.
It's very labour intensive. I mean, this is a fairly big area. It'd take you weeks and weeks to actually do it with this sort of system.
But even so, they say it is more effective and much safer than using the alternative, a toxic herbicide. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
It's a smile that would light up any room, but behind it lies a world of struggles and pain for Max Redford and his family. The bubbly 2-year-old was born with a congenital condition, cytomegalovirus or CMV, and suffers from cerebral palsy, seizures and developmental delays. Max requires full-time care from his parents Karen and Jerry and desperately needs a wheelchair, a walker and other equipment to cater for his long-term needs. Members of the Army base at Singleton today began a marathon bike journey, 1,027 kilometres to be exact, raising money for the Redford family.
I heard of his plight to my mum and dad and decided that the Army guys could get in and help.
Jerry and I have just been totally blown away, you know, I mean, just all of this just for one little boy. You know?
But it's hoped that one little boy will soon be able to socialise with those his own age with the help of a new bicycle. Today also aims to raise awareness about the little-known condition that affects 200 newborn babies in Australia every year. Donations can be made to the Mobility Marathon for Max campaign at the Singleton Defence Credit Union. Colleen West, NBN News. Quite simply, these men are mad. Sure, they look like a sensible group of healthy gentlemen out for some morning exercise. That is, until they throw blocks of ice into Merewether baths and start swimming amongst them. They are the Merewether Mackerels, a 30-odd-year-old winter swimming group with 70 members who race every Sunday during the chilly season, rain, hail or shine.
It gets down to 11, 12 degrees in the middle of winter and it gets some blustery conditions, so it's for the foolhardy, I think.
88-year-old Alf Carpenter is the oldest member who relies on this, his heart starter, to get the blood pumping after competing. Today marked the first swim of the season and the launch had all the usual grandeur. And the less rehearsed club song was also belted out. Anyone crazy enough to want to join the Mackerels in their madness can visit the Merewether Baths on any Sunday morning until the end of August. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
Mark Taylor's gone into bat for the Salvos, helping them to reach their anticipated tally of $1.5 million for the Newcastle and Central Coast in the Red Shield appeal. Mark Taylor was guest speaker at the launch of the appeal, lending his support to help squeeze some dollars out of a few local business leaders.
I believe they're looking to try and raise some phenomenal amount of money, something like $52 million right across Australia, but it's money they need. The people of our community that we, as I said, we don't often see, need that money badly, and the Salvos need it to help them out.
Along with 190 of the top businessmen and women, he helped to kickstart the annual appeal and promote the door knock, which will be held on May 22nd and 23rd. Meanwhile, there was a line-up at Glendale Supercentre as current Australian cricket captain Ricky Ponting made a special appearance this afternoon to meet some of his biggest fans. Signing autographs and posing for some photographs, Ponting was promoting a deodorant sponsor. But it's the pending tour of Zimbabwe that has the captain and teammates sweating. Stuart McGill has already announced he won't be touring. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
To the EDI workforce building the 140 Millennium carriages for the Sydney network, they're the source of great pride. Initial teething problems when the trains finally hit the rails, however, turned this piece of Hunter craftsmanship into a political football. A bitter debate which has now seen the government rethink its next rail purchase, possibly spelling the end for the remaining 60 carriages in the contract. But workers now want the region to back a campaign so they can complete the job.
They expect the community to assist them in getting the government to change their decision and to implement the manufacture of the third stage of the Millennium train forthwith.
In a rebuff for Transport Minister Michael Costa, EDI today denied it would increase the price for the next batch of trains, saying the $22 million costing was a quote for the government on modifications. And the union seized on the minister's claim that the Millennium train was too advanced for the Sydney network.
Don't can a world-class product because you've got a substandard network.
Gary Blair, NBN News. To motorbike riders, it's the only way to see the countryside. Ask Ulysses Club members Lynn and Des Mills of Curry and they'll tell you it's the ultimate getaway.
Riding a motorcycle, you're out there in the wind and you're with nature. It's terrific, great feeling, you know. You can't describe it unless you do it.
And the sight of riders saddling up to make their way through Cessnock, Maitland, Dungog and Port Stephens is set to become more common with the release of Motorcycling the Hunter. It builds on a guide to touring the Cessnock area released 2 years ago, and Des Mills expects the new expanded edition will be in high demand from the touring fraternity.
The first one created a lot of interest, and I'm sure that this one is going to create a lot more interest because of the extended field.
Motorcycling the Hunter also includes safety advice for cyclists and an invitation from civic leaders to report road problems to the participating councils.
Because if there are any roads, any potholes that are there which could endanger the safety of people, it's in our interest to know so that we can continue to improve our roads.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
It's a cut-price water-saving connection for your hose, which acts as a high-pressure cleaner. In this demonstration, you can see just how powerful it is.
This is a poor man's high-pressure machine. And one of the good things about it is you don't have to drag it out of the shed and plug it in and uncoil it. You've got your hose there and you just put it on and it does a pretty good job.
After developing a water-saving shower head 10 years ago, Arnold Delaney designed the jet for cleaning pathways, cars and homes.
I saw it with good pressure get rid of spider webs under the eaves of a two-storey house from the front lawn.
Although Arnold can't give too much away, he says the water stream gains extra velocity by mixing air with the water, similar to a carburettor system. Now it's ready to be produced to give Arnold a return for all his hard work, but instead he's donated his idea and its potential earnings to the Morisset Lions Club. They'll sell it for $25 each. And at 80 years old, Arnold's decided to stop tinkering with his inventions, retiring from it all, something he admits will be very difficult.
I think I did my first invention when I was about 7. I don't go looking for these things, they seem to come looking for me.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
It could be described as democracy at work. Rather than Newcastle ratepayers being told what they'll fork out, the newly elected council has decided those paying the bill should decide between two options. And the Lord Mayor is quick to point out that the jump in Newcastle property valuations won't influence the rate bill.
I think what needs to be stressed at this point of time, that a 90% increase in your land value doesn't equate to a 90% increase in your rates. In fact, council's rate revenue will be capped by the state government.
The first option is a 25% base rate, which uses 3/4 of the land valuation, while the second proposal calculates the rate on 100% of land value with a minimum rate of $468. Councillor Tate is already backing the base rate.
Since we've had the base rate structure, the applications for hardship have been the lowest that I've ever known.
On the other side of the ledger, how council uses the money is also up for public debate, with the Lord Mayor calling for direction on how the city spends ratepayer dollars on public amenities and services.
Don't get too hung up on this rate structure debate. At the end of the day, it's only part of the budget considerations.
Residents get their say for 4 weeks starting Friday. Gary Blair, NBN News.
She retired from netball on a high in 2001 with a grand final win with the Sydney Swifts. But it seems Reagan Jackson hadn't had her fill and left the sport prematurely.
I was happily retired, but given this opportunity to play in Newcastle, I felt like I had to be here, and I've just absolutely enjoyed it immensely.
Now at 28, she's made a big return to the sport as the skipper of the Hunter Jaegers, and tomorrow night in Sydney she'll be taking on many of her former teammates.
I've basically been coached by their coach Julie Fitzgerald since I was 15 years old, so it'll certainly be a bit strange running out against them.
And with plenty of inside knowledge of the Swifts' moves and tactics, Reagan's been passing on plenty of tips to her new side.
I've played with the core group of the Swifts, as I said, since I was 15, so I pretty much know what they're going to do out there, but on the same token, they know a bit about me as well.
And while the Jaegers dominated their debut match last weekend, she admits the Swifts will be a whole different ball game.
It's going to be very tough, but the Queensland Firebirds, that was a great game for us to win last week. They're a pretty evenly matched side against us, so it's great that we could have that opportunity to play a lower ranked side so that we can come in with a bit of confidence this week.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
The City versus Country Origin match will be played tonight. It's shaping up to be a sellout crowd. And again this year, I'm in camp with the country team and it's been a hectic week. Both teams have had their first 3 days of camp in country areas to promote the game. Now, the City boys went to Mudgee while Country visited Armidale. Now, both trips were a great success and well received by the locals. Eventually, both the teams settled into camp on the Central Coast. Now, unfortunately, there was a training accident for Country's Luke DeVico while the team was doing an opposed ball work session against Central Coast team, the Entrants, on Wednesday night. Now, DeVico, at 31 years of age, was looking to play his first representative game, but dislocated a rib, which will take him out of tonight's match. Josh Perry will get a start and take his place. Now, I can let you know the Country team's training has been fairly intense. Coach Ricky Stewart has drilled them well. Big Willie Mason is looking focused. The reunited combination of Brett Camorley and Scott Hill is really impressive. And debutant Kurt Gidley, well, he'll get plenty of game time, and I'm tipping that he'll put a real stamp on the match. There's a fair share of niggling paper talk between the two teams, which is good. There's going to be a lot of feeling tonight, so don't miss it. It's on at 8:30 right here on NBN. Now, on to round 9 and Saturday, there's 3 games. I'm going for the Roosters, the Storm and the Warriors. 4 games on the Sunday. I'm going with the Panthers and injury-plagued Broncos to beat the Raiders, Knights and the Dragons to win as well. Good luck with your tips. I'll catch you all next week.
Doing much of his growing up around his grandparents' Wallsend home, this was the best show and tell they can all remember. The world title belt, the crown jewel in a prize collection. And follow his grandpa's advice he did. After sizing up his rugged Argentinian opponent Adrian Denef early, Bennett began calling the shots. Using his speed, Bennett showed off a range of shots as his veteran opponent caught some telling blows. The more the fight wore on, the more Bennett dominated, leaving Denef searching for a knockout finish. But Bennett wasn't backing down either. A last round flurry had the crowd on their feet as the man they call Hollywood put his name up in world boxing's lights. After 12 rounds, it was obvious who won. It sparked emotional scenes in the ring as Bennett realised a boyhood dream.
It's an unbelievable thing, you know, it's a moment I'll never forget.
While a title defence overseas is already shaping as an option, a holiday is now the first priority.
I'll be eating nothing but fruit, or I will be the king of the fat squad.
Junior golf event or not, no matter where he plays these days, Nick Flanagan attracts attention. During the week, he made one of the most anticipated decisions in golf. After much deliberation with his coach, he announced he'll turn professional in July.
Well, I've asked him a lot of questions about everything, and he's been there and done it with Stuart. So I thought he would probably have the best idea about when would be the best time. And we had a good chat about 2 weeks ago, and that's when I really decided.
Relieved his immediate future is now set, he knows playing for your pay will be different, but something his recent summer form proved he's ready for.
Playing with those guys over the summer and the Masters and a couple of the US Tour events that I played has been very helpful, and a lot of the guys that I've met, the Australian guys, have been really good with me.
Recently playing around with his childhood hero Tiger Woods at Augusta National, Southwest Rocks couldn't have been a bigger contrast today, but one he enjoyed all the same, even if things didn't all go his way.
And this is where it all started for me in these junior tournaments, so to come back here and play with some of the guys that I haven't seen for a while, and everyone's grown up and they're all a lot older than I thought they would be, but yeah, it's just good to come back.
Flanagan leaves for America on May 26 ahead of the US Open. Growing more frustrated by the week sitting on the sidelines, Ben Kennedy just wants to play. His coach liked what he saw today at training and thinks his skipper has to run out on Friday night, given a State of Origin match beckons.
There's no question he needs to play some football for our team, first of all, but from an Origin point of view, you don't want to go into that sort of series not having played a lot of football.
While his club coach had no hesitation in handing him back the captaincy, just who'll lead the stateside is anyone's guess, with teammate Danny Badiris given a glowing endorsement by Andrew Johns at the weekend.
I remember many years ago we made a rookie a captain in Laurie Daly. He turned out to be one of the best ever, so maybe there's someone lurking there ready for his opportunity.
Kennedy's inclusion is the only change to the side that defeated the Bulldogs, with the real challenge to repeat the effort against the Broncos at home. It'll be something of a homecoming for Toowoomba-bred Steve Witt, who's taken his chance at Newcastle with open arms, but believes the Broncos will be even tougher to beat, despite their injury problems.
Well, I don't think there's ever a good time to be playing in Brisbane, but yeah, like us, mate, when your team's down, you tend to put in a bit more.
Origin squad members will join a day-long state camp tomorrow, while the rest of the team leaves for Brisbane.
With winter approaching, it's not unusual for farmers to offload a large number of calves. At the stockyards in Scone today, almost 1,900 cattle went under the hammer. While that's a small increase on recent weeks, sharply worsening drought conditions in the Upper Hunter could force farmers to sell more than they'd like to ensure there'll be enough feed for their remaining stock over the colder months.
In an average year, people would wean their calves and maybe keep them until the spring, perhaps, but this year it's just got so dry that most people are pulling the calves off the cows and sending them straight to market.
The positions of state-employed drought support workers have been extended from June to December this year, due to areas such as the Upper Hunter slipping from satisfactory to marginal drought.
We've had a good break in the last sort of season a bit, but it's getting really dry again and water is probably one of the critical things.
The New South Wales Department of Agriculture says assistance is available for struggling farmers, with more information available from the department's Scone office. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. Although Josh Ross hasn't qualified for the Olympics yet, his recent trip to Japan provided him with exposure to the best in the business.
I was at Osaka Grand Prix. You had Maurice Green there, so just to be on the same track as him was a buzz.
With a personal best time of 10.27 seconds over 100 metres, Josh believes he's very close to the Olympic qualifying time of 10.21 seconds. But it may not be the 100-metre event the former Stawell gift winner ends up concentrating on.
And I'm thinking about actually forgetting about the 100 and just chasing the 200, because I think it would be a lot easier. I'm probably closer to the 200 than 100.
Josh has 4 weeks to prepare for his next meet in Brisbane, which represents his final chance to qualify. But the 23-year-old isn't pinning all of his hopes on going to Athens and is positive about his future in athletics.
If I don't make it, it's not the end. I've got World Championships, Commonwealth Games in 2 years in Melbourne, so I've got a big 4 years ahead of me.
The sprinter also hopes to make the 4x100 relay team, alongside other Australian sprinting stars such as Patrick Johnson and Matt Shervington. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Fishermen made the grim discovery of the man's body just off Dutchman's Beach, Nelson Bay. He was fully clothed and had several items in his possession, but so far Lower Hunter detectives have been unable to identify the man. Even a check of fingerprint records failed to help investigators. A post-mortem today revealed the man may have been in the water for about 3 days, prompting police to ask for public assistance with their investigation.
We really are calling on any members of the public that may be able to identify this man from his description, or indeed anyone perhaps in the area especially that has someone in the family missing since before Sunday.
Police say the man is described as being aged between 60 and 80, 170 centimetres tall, weighs 70 kilograms and has short grey hair. Anyone with information is asked to contact Raymond Terrace Police Station. Gary Blair, NBN News.
I've just spoken to our medical staff and they've given me the all clear to play. So, it's just a matter of playing well and getting through the game.
There will be 10 to 12 non-TAB meetings held here in 2004-2005, plus a substantial funding commitment from Harness Racing New South Wales to maintain the track as a training centre.
Port Stephens is the meeting ground for around 90 whale rescuers from all over Australia and New Zealand this week in their quest to learn the intricacies of disentangling a whale from ropes and fishing nets. Every year, humpback whales migrate from their summer feeding grounds in the Antarctic to tropical waters in the north, but unfortunately some don't make it. Instead, they become caught up in fishing gear or marine debris.
There's a variety of different items they get entangled in. In Western Australia, it tends to be more lobster pot, but around the coast of Australia, New South Wales, it's various types of rope and net.
The problem is so serious it's being considered as a major threat to whales nationally.
Since 1990, we've had 25 humpback entangled and 3 southern rights.
Doug Cochrane, a whale expert from Western Australia, has been saving whales for most of his life. Using a rubber model of a whale complete with tail, he's teaching the best way to free whales from entanglements. And he says that's not by getting in the water with them, which can be a fatal mistake. He uses the kegging technique, based on old whale hunting skills. But instead of kegs, they attach buoys to the whale's tail to create drag and wear the animal out.
And what we're doing is loading an animal up with specialised equipment which slows it down, gives us a window where we can move in safely.
They then use a cutting device attached to a pole to free the whale from the rope, and Doug insists it should only be left to the professionals. And with only 1/3 of entangled whales saved each year, they're hoping to improve the success rate in the near future. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Nathan Law has pleaded guilty to driving at a dangerous speed in this August 2002 road accident near Maitland that killed 75-year-old local resident Gwendolyn Ward. Law had set out from Islington on a work trip, a journey that ended when the ute he was driving at an estimated 130 kilometres an hour ploughed into the elderly woman's car as she was turning right from South Seas Drive, Ashtonfield, onto the New England Highway. Solicitor Frank Terenzini for the Crown today told Newcastle District Court the 22-year-old Medford man had driven at a speed well in excess of the speed limit with selfish disregard to other road users and was an accident waiting to happen. In submissions on sentence, John Fitzgerald, counsel for Nathan Law, said that the tragedy had had a remarkable impression on his client and that the young man expressed remorse for what had happened. The court heard Law had told a psychiatrist, "I think about it every day. I can't turn back time and make it go away." Mr Terenzini argued the court had no alternative than to sentence Law to full-time custody. The Medford man was remanded in custody and will be sentenced by Justice Ralph Coolahan tomorrow. Gary Blair, NBN News.
For a fledgling club, it doesn't come much tougher than facing the top 2 teams in the first 3 rounds. But after taking on the back-to-back champions, the Melbourne Phoenix, this Friday night, the Hunter Jaegers will find out if they match up with the best.
Yeah, it is a tough test, but we played them in pre-season. We did really, really well, so we're hoping to have another good hit out against them this Friday night.
One of the Hunters' strongest performers so far this season has been goal shooter Lara Wellham. Up until this season, the 22-year-old Novocastrian had seen limited time on the court in the Commonwealth Bank Trophy, but with the chance to play big minutes, Lara has already proven her worth to the Jaegers, ranking third in the league in goals with 56 in 3 games.
Oh, it's not something I expected, but now that I know that I'm up there, hopefully I can push on and stay there for the rest of the season.
And with Melbourne's shooting accuracy just over 90%, the Newcastle University student will have to be at her best for the Jaegers to cause an upset and send the Phoenix back to the Ashes. But Lara, for one, seems confident.
Yeah, we'll definitely get over the top of them.
Hundreds of vocal protesters marched from the foreshore to Civic Park, angry at the Howard government's decision to slash the peak Indigenous body. This week's budget saw 4 ATSIC-run programs dealing with family violence prevention, women's development, home ownership and work for the dole scrapped and moved into existing government departments. While the Prime Minister says ATSIC is a 15-year failed experiment of separate representation for Indigenous Australians, Senator Aidan Ridgway, today speaking as an Aborigine rather than a politician, says ATSIC has been very effective.
We're talking about 35,000 Indigenous people right across the country that are currently on work for the dole. We're talking about 500 here in the Hunter Valley. That's going to put enormous pressures on local government and the state government. Quite frankly, I don't think that they'll be able to cope.
Traditional entertainment was followed by hip-hop dance to express youth concern. Senator Ridgway says protests will continue around the country. Linda Kincaid, NBN News. Today, Laura was celebrating with staff at Lake Macquarie's Toronto Private Hospital rehab unit following a minor stroke 4 weeks ago. Two candles to represent all 105 years still took a large effort to blow out. But if you think 105 is good, Laura Kent is keen to keep on keeping on.
I think if you went to 1,000, it would be, you just live on and not overdo it.
2 of her 5 children were present today to congratulate their mum's longevity. Laura is the 3rd youngest of 14 kids, her younger sister passing away in April, just a few months short of her 100th birthday. The granddaughter of a Danish politician, she's looking forward to watching the royal wedding tonight. And for family and friends racing out to buy a birthday card for a 105-year-old, have the permanent marker on hand. Linda Kincaid, NBN News.